Today is August 6th. Does anybody even care about the date? I am here, though, no matter what, on a weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And thank you for being with me and everybody here at the Wrestling Mat. Always appreciative to have the most interactive pro wrestling show out there with the best community out there. And I talked about that a lot yesterday at the end of yesterday's show. Thanks to Yobi for bringing that up, for bringing that to my attention. What are we trying to get out of this channel? Went on a little mission statement, I guess, at the end of the show yesterday. So I appreciate that. What up to Phil? What up to everybody? And thank you for being with us here. If you saw the little promo for the show, was that the most productive Monday Night Raw of the year? We're going to talk all Raw today. That's pretty much the whole show because I have so much to get into, and I mean that in the best way possible. While I like to share some stories, I do have a couple of anecdotes, some stories of my time in WWE that I'd like to share with you as it relates to some of the talent we saw last night because I think it shows the journey. What's up, Rob? And yes, as always, you know where to go to subscribe, thewrestlingmatshow.com. It's always right above Todd, which, by the way, is one of our membership levels. The membership levels, and you don't have to put it, throw it up, real quick. Right below Todd, right above Todd. Right above Todd, right below Todd. Anywhere you want to be with Todd is $2.99 a month. That's what you see there. That's what you get. The mid-card level, right above Todd. Yeah, we do have to fix that. There's right above Todd and right below Todd, so we got to fix that. But you know what it says right there in the middle? You leave that up for a couple more seconds. You see everything you get at the mid-card level. You see what you get at the main event. Now, something I want to point out here for those in the mid-card level and the main event, we will be watching random episodes of Raw, SmackDown, and Dynamite once a month. And guess what? Bring me back, Dom. Let me tell the people this in person. Next Monday is our next watch party here at the Wrestling Mat. A Wrestling Mat watch party for Monday Night Raw next week. So if you're at the mid-card level or if you're at the Mat event level, that's the next one. We're firing this thing up at 8 p.m. Eastern next Monday Night Raw back on USA Network, and we're going to be watching Raw live. For those of you that joined us for SummerSlam, hope you had a great time. We're going to be with you for Raw next Monday night for members only at the mid-card level or at the Mat event. If you're not at that level yet, or if you're not a member at all, you can go sign up at thewrestlingmatshow.com or right below. It's in this area. You just hit join and come on aboard. You see everything you get there. We showed you what you get. There's more of that info on the membership tab on YouTube at thewrestlingmatshow.com. Phil is a member. First name John is a member. Welcome to you guys. Welcome to Joseph, and welcome to everybody. Good to have you aboard here on this Tuesday. Happy to be talking some wrestling with you. And yeah, typically I might have like an old story to tell or a subject we're going to get into. Last night's Raw deserves all of our attention because I will say right now that I thought SummerSlam was like a 5.5, 6. It was fine. It was a little angle-based. It does seem to be, as we talked about Saturday night here while we were watching live, or yesterday, kind of coming off the weekend with a little couple days to digest, seemed like a polarizing show. Not a bad show. Let me get that clear. Not a bad show. But ups and downs, execution maybe missed in some spots. In other spots, it was great. Not everything was paint by numbers, although a lot of stuff felt, I don't want to say predictable. I want to say following a path that made sense. Not as predictable. And that brought us to Monday Night Raw. And I thought they did a hell of a job last night. Really did. And for those of you commenting, always appreciate it. But we'll get you to the front of the line. You super chat, and we get into your subject right away, or if it's a point you want to make or a question you have. So super chats get you in there, certainly helping support the show. We'd love to have your support in any way possible. So if you have some thoughts that you want to make sure get out there and get to me, because that chat typically fills up and gets going as we get going, super chats get you there. So we'll get into that, though. And please let me know. Let's just kind of, I'm going to bounce around. I have some things that I kind of wrote down as I watched the show. I'm going to kind of keep them in the chunks as they're related. So Raw opening, one thing I want to note about the Raw opening, they show the entrances. I was surprised, and I think the payoff was fine layered. So this is not a nitpick. This is just interesting formatting. I have said even before the Liv Dom turn on Saturday that if they do that, those two should open the show. And I mean open the show in front of the live crowd. So they show the entrances at the beginning of the show, and they show them first, and they got a reaction. I was surprised, And this is, once again, a formatting thing that they showed him in that way, where sometimes you don't want to show somebody to blow the pop. Sometimes I wouldn't want to show somebody, or for that case, Liv and Dom, to hurt the boos, to get them bigger. The way they formatted it worked out. I was just, when I watched the show as it happened, not knowing what they had planned, I went, I don't know if I would have shown them there. Now, we know what happened later, and we know what they did, and that's fine. I'll get back to that. But they open with Gunther. And I will say this, if you're not going to open with Liv and Dom to get showered with boos, something I had said about, if they're going to do the Finn turn with Priest in the Gunther match, I don't want it to overshadow Gunther winning his first World Heavyweight Championship. Because as I had said, I think everything that happened with Drew and Punk has been something that's overshadowed Priest's world title reign. And even the other stuff that was going on with Judgment Day was overshadowing Priest's title reign. And maybe that's the story they're going to now start to tell of everything else was going around and he took his eye off the ball and he needed help where he didn't want it. And now, well, that help's gone other than Rhea Ripley. But I was happy that Gunther got the spotlight. He won the World Heavyweight Championship. He's the most pushed wrestler in the company, not named Roman or Cody. In terms of his presentation, in terms of his win-loss record, in terms of who he beats, in terms of everything. And he has backed up everything. So he comes out last night, and I was happy to see Kaiser give him the introduction. And Gunther comes out, he's got the suit, and he looked like a world heavyweight friggin' champion. That's what he looked like. That first title reign, babyface, heel, whatever, sometimes people need to find their footing. They get starry-eyed. Oh, my God, I did it, and I made it in the best way possible. The best way possible. He looks like he was at another day of work kicking ass and being the guy. It just looked like, I won the world title at SummerSlam. I told you I was going to do it. And here I am the next day at Monday Night Raw opening the show because I'm the World Heavyweight Champion. I still conduct my business the same, but now I have this gold. I'm on the top of this show. I have this. And you know what else it made me feel like when he won and the way he was presented last night? I know the WWE Championship is the highest. I know that the creation of the World Heavyweight title, because I was the one that actually introduced the damn thing on the bump a couple days after they showed it on Raw. I know that felt inferior. Because basically they were saying, well, we can't get the title off Roman, and we know what his deal is, so we need to create a new title. And they were like, it's the workhorse title and everything. But I thought when Gunther stepped out there last night, and I'm not saying Seth did a bad job, and I'm not saying Damian did a bad job, but when Gunther stepped out there last night, it felt like that title had the most meaning it's had since it was introduced. Because of how Gunther presents himself, because of how he acts, because of how he says, I am the very best and I'm above everyone else. And he says that with a world title over his shoulder. Not people saying I'm the best wrestler in the world or I'm the best in the world and blah, blah, blah. No. He says that with a world heavyweight championship over his shoulder. Looking, as Joseph said, like a bad MFer. He comes across, love that comment, like he's the real deal. I believe everything Gunther says because he backs it up. Because there is a respect you have to give him that he demands. Because even though he is a heel, he typically beats people the way they need to be beaten. He doesn't really have a lot of matches on his record where there's been outside interference or cheating or whatever. It's happened a few times, and that's fine. His heel persona is that he is better in the ring. This is not a MJF thing, better than you and you know it. He is better than everyone, and he backs it up, and he will tell you he's better than everyone. And when he needs to turn it up, he can run down a Miz. He can run down a Chad Gable. He can run down a Sami Zayn. He can run down and turn successfully Damian Priest. Make no mistake about it. the success of Damian Priest's babyface turn should also, not completely, but also be attributed to what Gunther did with him in the lead up to SummerSlam. Gunther had to say those things to put Damian in that position. Yes, I know it's writing, but he had to, there was a way to deliver it. Gunther's words are biting, and I think they bite more because you know how good he is and he can back them up. He is not a chicken shit heel. He is someone that will rip you down verbally, tell you why he's better, why his upbringing was better, why his training was better, and then go back it up. And there is a frustration, there is a jealousy with that. There's always that fine line when a baby face or a heel is so good. Does the crowd not like them because they can't be them? Do they play into that? Or is the crowd in awe of how good they are? Roman Reigns talked down to everybody, and then he backed it up. But over time, and absence makes the heart grow fonder, people just wanted to do this. Even during the run, when he took 9 years to walk to the ring, and he had matches that typically ended the same way. You still wanted to be part of the Roman experience. I talked about this a lot yesterday. You still wanted to be part of the Roman experience, and you respected how good he was. When people get that good at the job, and this is more of a, I want to say, a last, not 20 years, but it's more of a modern thing where people meant, man, that guy's a great heel. I love to boo him. I love how good he is. He's gotten so good, I kind of want to cheer him. I think AEW did that with MJF. I think they went too far, and I think the MJF we're seeing now is a better version of MJF. You know, the my scumbag thing. That was a respect level of, man, he's so good at that, and he's so good at being a heel, I kind of want to like him now. Roman Reigns, so good at his job, I kind of want to like him. The Rock, you know, in the corporation. Funny, catchphrases, all that stuff. Yeah, he was aiming it at baby faces, but you're like, God, that guy's so good at entertaining. And they turned him babyface, and that's where he remained until this year when he came up with the great idea all by himself of turning himself heel. That was all The Rock. That's the thing, right? Yeah, glasses. And then I turned myself heel because I thought that was the right thing to do, and I always knew that was the best idea. Anyway, that will live forever. But Gunther, I could see a babyface run down the line. He just doesn't run down his opponents. He just kicks ass in the ring. Rhea Ripley's the same thing. You loved her for a variety of reasons. Believe me. I totally get that. I totally understand that. Her look, what she posts, what she reposts, she knows her fan base. But as I said, she was going to turn babyface when she beat Becky. That was the plan. And they found someone to put against her who was a heel. Sometimes that's what it takes. You put another heel up against the heel you want to turn, and you get the result you want. It happened with Gunther and Damian Priest. It happened with Liv and Rhea Ripley. I'm sure it'll happen again soon. Roman Reigns. Someone he was siding with has become more powerful, has taken his role, and he's come back to take him out. Where it goes next, we will find out on Friday. But Gunther getting that spotlight to open the show, to look the part, to get the pyro. You know what else I can say? You can keep groups together, and they can still have singles motivations. Ludwig Kaiser came out to do the entrance. It made sense. He should be part of that moment. He's not part of the matches. Gunther stands on his own there, but they are still affiliated with each other. There's a bond there. And we still saw Ludwig Kaiser go out and wrestle on his own, without Gunther's help, with nothing to do with Gunther, with someone he's been feuding with for about a month, and stand on his own. I will get to that match. Someone brought up a couple other ones. Swerve, Samoa Joe. There's a respect level. There is a likability. There is, that guy's damn good at his job, or she's damn good at her job. But you put the right people opposite of them, it makes the turn easier. Joe's always teetered on that. Joe was always a guy, people talk about Paul White, Big Show. His babyface is a heel. His babyface is a heel. And there's been more like obvious turns with him. Samoa Joe's kind of like that too. The babyface is a heel. But that's because Joe is always pretty much the same person. He's always down the same line. If he veers a little this way, he's more babyface. If he veers a little this way, he's more heel. Joe knows exactly how to turn that dial. I think Cody will be able to turn that dial down the road. I think Roman's going to turn that dial on Friday. I think Damian Priest, he turned it a little bit more in the babyface way. But there was a reason for that, and I thought it made sense. We'll get to that. So we're trying to figure out who Gunther's going to face. And I brought up the idea of, well, it's Basher Berlin. He's going to win. He's going to have not home field, even though somebody mentioned that he was German. He's not German. He's Austrian. The crowd's going to be behind him in Basher Berlin and Berlin. That it should be. And he should be celebrated. So I thought of the idea of Ilya. He wins a Battle Royal last night. When I saw they didn't announce anything, I went, okay, there's not a lot of time. There's going to be some kind of angle here to set up his challenger, because they had matches announced and they had Pierce come on and shoot from the arena floor and put it on a social media saying, hey, here's what we have tonight. But in addition, we have a commercial-free show. So that started to get me thinking, all right, well, they're doing something. And it was on Sci-Fi, and that's part of the gimmick as well. Hey, we know you got to come over to another channel. We know the number's going to be down, but hey, it's going to be commercial-free, so we're going to keep you locked in. All smart moves. And by the way, a great example of having a strong partnership with your TV distributor. They've had it with NBC Universal for a while, just like AEW is getting that overrun, is getting commercial-free stuff on TBS and on TNT. There's a good relationship there. It's the same thing. I had heard, I guess Meltzer or whatever said, well, it'll be Drew. And I know people brought up Drew in the chat yesterday, and I said, I just don't want that. Once again, let's not make Drew and Punk overshadow Gunther's first title defense. Don't let what happened to Priest happen to Gunther. And what did they do? They bring back around King of the Ring. And here comes Randy Orton, which in its own, on Monday Night Raw, is a fun pop to hear for a crowd that was 12,000 strong. And I will bring this up a bunch of times as we talk about Raw. Raw last night was amplified by a crowd that was in on everything, that was excited, that reacted exactly as all the writing would want them to suggest to react, because they gave them all good stuff all night long. But they brought back around King of the Ring with Randy Orton and Gunther. And what a time to do it. Because if you think about it, they did not plan a sloppy finish. And my goodness, between these two guys, that would not happen 99 times out of 100. And when they did King, who knows what was planned? Who knows how far out it was planned? But you know what? What a good booker can do, what a good promotion will do, they adjust. I don't know how far out it was planned for Gunther to win the world title. Probably a while, based on the King of the Ring and based on all of the pieces that were in play last night. Seemed to be exactly what they wanted to do. With Judgment Day, then with Gunther winning, now his opponent, who knows? Maybe he was supposed to beat Randy and it was supposed to be 3 seconds better, and Randy would say, I want a shot down the line. But instead, they got that finish where Randy's shoulders were not down. They were supposed to be. That was supposed to be the finish. And how did they bring that back around? Hunter said they would, and they did. And when did they do it? At a nice surprise to pop the crowd, to set up what now becomes a pretty damn big match at Bash at Berlin. I love the promo. Back and forth. Orton gets a great pop. Really well done. I thought both guys spoke to each other very truthfully. I like that Gunther, even though he's a heel, did not admit or did not try to fight back or didn't push back. You know what? That was a stain on my victory. That was a stain on my sheet. I like that. I also did not think, and I'm going to get into this because I see a comment that's going to relate to this, that Gunther leaned into being a super heel. Why? Because he won't be at Bash at Berlin. Orton and Gunther have no issues. They have no personal issues. They have competitive issues. By the way, you can tell a story when two guys just want to be better than the other. Any company can tell that story. Just saying. That's what that was last night. Also, great to see Randy Orton back in the world title picture, where he belongs. Enough with the rubs he's given. Enough of him dealing with Logan Paul or being front and center, main eventing a pay-per-view, looking like a brick shithouse. I saw the social thing. He's like 270. I was like, he's like, I'm 290, which I liked. Like, little stuff like that's fun. And Randy looks the part. And I don't know how long Randy has. He told me, yeah, I got 10 years. And he hurt his back and it was a different story. But I want to see Randy in these spots. And I think Randy's actually more popular now than he ever was before. I really do believe that. I think he's more motivated now. I think everything he's learned from his career is on full display. I don't think there's any hint of those headlocks or chin locks that took forever and slowed things down. I think you get the best out of Randy every time he steps out there. He knows how to pick his spots. But I think you're seeing the absolute best Randy Orton right now. And that might be a controversial opinion, and people like him as a heel in Evolution, or they like him in Legacy or anything like that. But he, right now, has such great value to the company. And I said, talked about the whole thing with Punk and Drew, and you got a Rock Austin, you got two baby faces. I never believed that Randy stood side by side with John Cena. Because they were both, there's a baby face and a heel. I never thought Randy hit that level. I never thought he broke through the wrestling barrier. Cody's big in and out of wrestling. Roman's big in and out of wrestling. Sponsorships, things like that. I don't think Randy ever got there, and that's mostly because he was a heel, and heels don't get pushed in that way, and they didn't back then, and they weren't, shown in such a fashion. But Randy now, I think, is in a perfect role and being used correctly and coming across great. Now, somebody just brought up, he called him German. I don't think he meant to say that. That was a miss. He's Austrian. It wasn't, I think it was just a miss. I think it was a mistake. As simple as that, it happened. That was the only down part about it. I like that the end of the promo, accept the match, handshake, and the camera catches them talking. And Gunther says something to the effect of, I just want you to know, right here, absolutely nothing catches me out of nowhere. And Randy responds, good. I want you to see it coming. That's great. That's great shit right there. Hey, I don't want you to have an excuse. I'm not going to attack you from behind. It's also kind of a babyface thing. I'm not going to be that guy to you. I want to beat you looking you right in the face. I want you to know when I'm going to put you down. I am a legend killer in that way. And maybe you're the next legend that's going to go down. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Now, Nerdy Dude says, you can put this one up, Don. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I am honestly not that excited to see Gunther versus Randy Orton because, why Orton? Because he's a legend and people love him wherever he goes. That is certainly fair. That is fair. I will say two things. Number one, they're closing the storyline arc on King of the Ring. That's logical. That makes sense to me. I appreciate them acknowledging that something went wrong, and now Randy wants another shot to make it right, and Gunther wants another shot to make it right. And you don't want an asterisk next to it. You don't want that. And That's a good thing. That is a company recognizing, that's booking, that's creative writing, recognizing, hey, this happened. Now we spin it into a positive. Now we get to see those two go again. And they had a pretty damn good match at King of the Ring in the finals. And they can have another one now with the world title on line with a crowd that is going to be off the chain. And another part of this I want to mention, and I don't know if they will parlay this. I don't know. We will see. I have said plenty of times that I hope we get Cody and Randy. What I'm hoping for, Tom is kind of bringing up my point here. What I'm hoping for is that if Gunther, and I think Randy will get some cheers because he's Randy. There's some people that are just over no matter what country and who they're facing. And that's, Randy's earned that. Tom just said it. Gunther's going to get cheered in Berlin. Randy can be booed in that moment, work with it, and not have it mess with him like it would a lot of other current baby faces. He can lean into it. Tom, I'm glad you said it because I thought that last night. Randy can lean into that. He can lead into it that night. And if need be, he can continue to lead into that. And maybe get to that heel turn that a lot of us would like to see to take on Cody. Now, we'll see what Roman says on Friday, because that will determine a little bit of where the direction he's going. Is he going to get away from Cody? Is he going to mention that he owes him one? Cody owes Roman one, and that he's after Solo and he's after the bloodline? Or are we getting Cody and Roman in the same story? We will see. But I could see if Randy gets booed, and it might just be a lot of cheering. It might just be a loud crowd that is happy to see Gunther, who will be beloved in his first title defense, on top of the company. And they might be very happy to see someone they have watched for 20-plus years in Randy Orton. And it might just be a hot crowd looking forward to a great match and reacting to everything. That could absolutely happen. It is a one-off, though. They're not staying there. Somebody just brought up Canada. The Brett thing was, that was back and forth a little bit more. I also think something you got to think about is I don't think Randy's going to get booed in America until he does something to get booed in America. Now, if he gets booed at all, it's going to happen in Berlin before the actual turn happens. But if there is any booing, and that gets leaned into by Randy on the show, that could continue. And I don't know if they can predict that. And it might be something on their big whiteboard in Stanford where they go, okay, Randy heel. Maybe they have shows. Maybe they have whatever. I'm just guessing. I've never seen that whiteboard. Only on that documentary. That such truthful documentary they did. But there's a chance. There's a chance they do that. B. May said, thank you for being a member, B. May, every other championship contender on Raw is in a pretty decent story right now, and in a good way. There really isn't another option. Yeah, that's why I said, if Ilya would have won a Battle Royal, which is, anybody can win a Battle Royal, you had some story there to tell. They're not going there. Instead, they're going to a story that's right there for them. And it's great that, yes, it is going to be his first title defense. My goodness, you want to set him off in a big way? It's the opposite of Cody, where I didn't think anybody you put up against Cody was strong enough in how their presentation was. It's not a knock on AJ. It's just where he was on the show and on the card and his presentation. Nobody thought Cody was losing to AJ. They go out and have a great match in France, and the crowd's a big part of it. Then the Logan Paul stuff is whatever. Back to AJ with a little story, but it just kind of felt like Cody was treading water. And they kicked it up a bit with the bloodline, and now we're going to see what's next. Do I think Gunther's losing to Randy Orton? Hell no, I don't. But it's Randy Orton, and it feels a hell of a lot bigger than Cody's first title defense against AJ, at least on paper. And I think the France crowd lifted that match up, and I think the Berlin crowd will lift up a great match on paper, a great first opponent, a Hall of Fame, massively over, clear main event, Randy Orton against Gunther. And they'll have a hell of a match. It's not a knock on AJ. It's where AJ was presented at the time. Kind of middle of the road. Not as hot as he should have been. Randy's hot. Randy's going to remain hot. You don't have to worry about heating up Randy Orton. And when you get a surprise pop like they did last night, it means even more. Let's go with Kaiser and Sheamus. Sheamus cuts that promo with Jackie, says the banger line. They go nuts. And they go nuts even though he has that crappy music now. Why they had to change that, I don't know. This crowd enhanced this match. Kaiser and Sheamus had a very good match. A really good match. I'm happy to see Kaiser on his own. This is a great solo feud for him. It's a great way. You could see, any of that stuff about Sheamus being out of shape. He's already clearly back in better shape. And that stuff happens. You're worried about rehabbing instead of maintaining or being in the shape you need to be. That's what happened with Sheamus. He's dealt with some injury issues. That crowd made that match better. They reacted to everything. If that match is in another city, while I know WWE's been making ridiculous money on ticket sales, some cities are better than others. I don't know how well that would have been received as a lower-ish mid-card feud in other places. Would it have gotten the same reaction? Baltimore was with it. It added to the match. I also want to say Kaiser is a heel all the way and doesn't do anything to make himself look cool other than in his own mind. He does little things to get the crowd to react. Doing the 10 beats, playing to the crowd, posing in a way that makes you want to punch him in the face. He's one of those people you're jealous of because you don't look like him. Because, he's got the A+ aesthetics. He knows how good he looks. He's always well kept. There is something about him that looks different than anybody else. In a good way. That makes you go, that friggin' guy. He is not looking for a single pop. He's not trying to be cool. He plays to the crowd to get booed, to get the other guy cheered. And you know what he did? He made a big son of a bitch in Sheamus get babyface sympathy. And it looked believable. Even though Sheamus is a bigger guy, the way both guys played their role. Sheamus, who typically, if you get in the ring with him, I'll tell you this, he's stiff. You got to earn your way to get your shots in on Sheamus. And that's fine. That's who he is. I think Sheamus was one of the MVPs of the Thunderdome because all his stuff looked really good. At a time where there wasn't that real crowd reaction, and you had the fake crowd noise, and you had the screens, Sheamus just going out there and having fights with Bobby Lashley or fights with Drew McIntyre, that stuff came across even better. Everybody said, hey, and I heard this from a lot of people, you got to lay it in a little bit more. You can hear this stuff a lot cleaner now because there is no crowd there. Because the mics are just really picking up us. Because we're wrestling in an empty arena. Yes, there's screens here, but we're wrestling in front of nobody. Live. Sheamus is a big part of that. And Sheamus gets his stuff in. And Sheamus hits hard. But last night, he had to battle from underneath because Kaiser got a lot of stuff on him. Sheamus getting babyface sympathy doesn't happen very often. The match was laid out so well that happened. Also, something I noticed, and I never compare it to pay-per-views because I expect pay-per-views to be uninterrupted, even though there was I saw the thing, 2 hours of commercials and video packages on SummerSlam. Whew, that was a lot. How much better a TV match can flow without commercials? How much more you can get into it? Because there are times, and I know WWE or AEW, they'll do picture-in-picture, and sometimes they won't. But there are obvious times when you're a live crowd. They don't go, we're going to commercial now. But you can see a spot that's very clearly, okay, they're in commercial. Let's go to a headlock. Let's go, somebody gets knocked on the outside. Somebody celebrate. You can tell sometimes, more than half the time, if you're live when they go to commercial. Some would say, hey, that's smart, save your bumps. Some would say, hey, you got to keep everybody engaged. Last night, Kaiser and Sheamus had the chance to have a long match, kept the crowd engaged the whole time, and didn't have a commercial break. And I think it added to everything. Pete Dunne comes back, and yeah, I know he has Trick tonight, And there's some NXT news we're going to get to in a little bit, little breaking news. Some of you have already put it in the chat. Pete Dunne and Sheamus continuing their feud. Pete trying to get involved. That Sheamus knee, I think, is better than the Broad Kick. I told him that like 2 years ago. I said, that knee you hit is friggin', it looks devastating. You think about Kenny's hitting the knee, or Buddy Matthews has hit the knee, or was it Zoe, I think? Or some people have that knee. It's like, woof. Sheamus's, maybe because he's such a big dude, it looks so good every time. And he hits it on Pete on the outside, and he comes in, and he hit it, and then he followed with the brogue. Boom, boom, win. Didn't hurt Kaiser. He'll come back for another day. He lost to a former world champion, multiple-time WWE world champion. Sheamus was super over. Kaiser got most of that match, and I want to see more. Really good stuff all around. And the crowd chanted 1, 2, 3 for a lower mid-card feud. Sheamus is, I think, always going to be a level of over, but there's levels of that. That when you get a crowd on a feud that wasn't on SummerSlam, it's kind of been a little on and off. To chant 1, 2, 3, you did something right. They nailed that. All right, let's group all the Judgment Day stuff together. I'll hit everything that they did on the show. Priest comes out, loved how he walked out. He did the opposite of someone else who had a bad night at SummerSlam, and I'll get to that. Walked out, big pop. They wanted to see him. He's power walking. He's pissed. Total babyface promo. Talks about family, says, and this was the difference. This is Priest clearly leaning into being a babyface. This is all my family now. Pandering a little, but you know what? It worked, and they're with him. He's acknowledging something that he can hear. Those people didn't have my back. These people have been with me. They've seen everything I've done. Ups and downs. His documentary came out. They're going with him. They're totally going with him. Damian Priest has been a favorite of Triple H from the jump. When Damian Priest came up to Monday Night Raw, when he debuted in that Rumble, and then basically didn't lose a match for a year, and they had him tag with Bad Bunny and all that dude was over. And then they tried to do that like split personality thing, which had Vince and Bruce Pritchard's fingerprints all over it, and it was like, oh wait, he snapped, and the angel and devil on it sucked. He was over. Some old dude didn't think he was over enough or whatever. Priest was over, and was over at a time when it wasn't easy to get over. And they didn't handle it that well the first time. The dude didn't lose for like a year. He lost like a handicap tag with Miz and Morrison when they did the zombie thing. That's it. He didn't lose. He won the U.S. title and all those things, and it kind of just sputtered out. That guy last night took the big step forward in the last couple of weeks, and the reaction he got last night multiple times is a star-making reaction. He has grown in leaps and bounds since we saw him as Punishment Martinez in Ring of Honor, since he started at the Monster Factory, since he weighed 300 and something pounds. Like, that guy's done everything you could possibly want to do. And is now, here's a good example. He's got the machine behind him. Look at every piece of the presentation of Priest in the last month. The way Gunther cut him down to get babyface sympathy for him, where he didn't want help or he wanted to win things on his own. Having the interview segment that they did with him walking around New York, the documentary to debuting it and selling tickets to go show that, and putting Rhea there and putting Dom there, and having Punk show up at it. These are all things that the company is going to get fully behind. Some babyface, just get presented well on TV. This feels like a marketing plan. This feels like Priest has met with the right people, and I will tell you, when people would come to Stamford, some of them, not everybody, would get to go to headquarters and go talk to the right people. Hey, you're getting the full run around here today. Jade Cargill did it. There's a picture of her within like a couple of weeks of her signing, of her meeting with everybody, her meeting with the social team, her meeting with marketing, her meeting with creative services. Certain people got to do that. Certain people got that love. I am sure that Damian Priest has that level of the machine behind him, and it's working. Finn appears from the back. I love that they tied it back to last year. I should have won the title. This didn't happen. You told me to blah, blah, blah. Holding up the picture. And what did Finn say? No leaders. And he put it in a way where he made Priest out to be an asshole when he's not. It was a very heel way to say, well, you were the champ and you thought you were the man. No, he always had everybody's back. Finn didn't like being in the shadow. Finn felt disrespected. So the leader idea did come up, and he reveals himself, and there's Carlito, and there's Liv and Dom and JD. Okay, there's the group. Finn basically seems like he said he's the leader of that group because he's going to cut those promos. Carlito ain't cutting those promos. I'll get to the JD one in a second. Liv and Dom are a different entity. It is Finn's group now. And as I said yesterday, and go back and look at some of the promos he cut in New Japan when he started Bullet Club. He is a bad motherfucker. And when he wants to be mean and biting and an asshole, God, is he good at it. He can be just downright evil. And he's got all the confidence in the world. I don't know how I feel about how dangerous that group is as a whole. I think they need a little bit more. But Finn at the front cutting those promos is exactly what it should be. So they didn't do the big boo segment with Liv and Dom. It's the only thing I would have changed, and maybe it wouldn't have fit last night. I want to see that. That's all. I just want to see that. Here's my only weird thing with the timeline. You have Priest cut that promo, and he goes back and forth in front of the live crowd. He goes back and forth, not back and forth, but he cuts his promo, then Finn cuts his, and Finn's like, I'm not coming to get you now. I'll get you when I want to get you. And then they show pre-tapes with JD and Priest, and it made it seem like almost like they were done after, or it was odd that they have Priest cut that promo going after Judgment Day, and then they show pre-taped promos with JD and Priest after that. It just seemed like they were at that would have been something you put on next week's show or whatever. It seemed a little off. It was the timeline was just weird. It's like, hey, we need you to go get fired up to face JD McDonough tonight after you just spoke to the live crowd. I didn't totally get that, but not a big deal. Getting to the match. Priest super over again. What I noticed he did is something that I don't want to say he took it from Edge or it's homage to Edge. Came out, went to the sides of the crowd right near the entrance, and did this and did. He's playing to everybody, and they're with him. And there's a big difference when you do that and they're with you, and you do that and they don't react. And that happened to somebody else later on in the show. We'll get to that. Finn lied, still attacks. He said, I'll get to you when I want to get to you. And I'm going, all right, he's going to pick a spot. And Finn runs in, and then it's boom, 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 boom. And Priest kind of fights him off. I love that when they fought, when Priest fights him off, he called him the Punisher. And I don't know if they can use that because of copyrights, but it was a nice throwback to Punishment Martinez. But also when he said it, I was like, oh, that's a good name. He should be the Punisher. They should always go with that. And he's fighting everybody off, and then, Rhea's there, Liv's there by herself, and here comes Rhea, and that pop was massive. And she came to the ring a little slow, and then picked it up, and I was surprised as much as they got on Judgment Day, but they didn't get everything. There was two Razor's Edges that could have happened. Both didn't happen, so you leave the crowd still wanting to see that moment. I just wrote down, wow, they nailed this. Just listen to the crowd the whole time. They are so with it. They love Rhea. They love Priest. You know who they took down? They took down JD McDonough. That's fine. They got enough to establish that these two are family, the Terror Twins. And you know what? You can have a male-female pair, and there doesn't have to be romance. This is two badasses who consider themselves family because they are good friends, because they've come up together, and now their former friends, their former family are their enemies, and they don't have to go their separate ways. They should have each other's back, and they can still do what they need to do. Home run, grand slam. Someone actually put in my comments, I talked about the Cody Roman thing, who the number one babyface is. Someone's like, it's Rhea. Listen, there's at least an argument to be made. That's how over she is. And Priest is on his way up and going higher. And they absolutely have something in this. Now, Vincent just said, do the Judgment Day need a heavy to replace DP? I think they do. I think it would help them. Because basically you have Carlito and JD there to kind of just take bumps, and Dom's not going to be a threat to anybody. We know that. He's going to get a shit ton of heat because he's with Liv, and Liv can only take bumps of the women, and Finn needs to be the leader, so you don't want to get him to get beat up too much. They could use somebody bigger. Yeah. They need, and I don't think if it's Judgment Day 2.0 or they're going to remain as Judgment Day or whatever, I don't think they have to be as dark. Not that they were like ever spooky, but they were more dark. Maybe this new group is not about that. There's no clubhouse. There's no purple, black, or they're just assholes that felt like they were wronged by two people who were clearly the stars of the group. What they have is very good. Is there a mixed tag here? Is there somebody to add to the group? All are fair points. Damage control babyface thing is happening. I love when they came out the first time and cleared house. I thought they looked cool. Then they attacked Dakota, which I didn't love. But I think they're trying to make sure people know that they're baby faces. And they also want to make sure that, I think as Mia called them, the seals with Sonya and Zoe and Shayna. I get that. I love that the match didn't get canceled. They didn't have, I think in the past, you would have had Dakota Kai come limp out and, okay, she's a babyface, she's fighting through it, and she loses. Nope, she's not. She's not able to go. You give those three credit for taking her out, but then Io steps in for her, does what she does. The double corner spot was awesome. And this is why Damage Control, I think, will work better as baby faces. Because you have Io and Kairi and Dakota, who I think people always want to like. Dakota's one of the most likable people out there. Whether it's her Twitch streams or just her journey or, there's something very likable about her. Io Sky's been one of the best wrestlers in the world forever. Kairi Sane people like. Let them go do their cool stuff. They look cool. They act cool. The all black's a thing. And what'd you do? You put them up against heels. Io steps in for Dakota and wins. There is something for that. There is a lot there. I think it's very marketable. And I can understand the conversations that are starting to happen within the wrestling fan base, and I'm sure they've happened within the company, of, hey, we're going to be on a lot more international TV from one place with Netflix coming up, and it's going to hit a lot more people. There's the rumor about the Lucha Brothers maybe leaving AEW, even though they did a timeline for them this morning, which is interesting timing and maybe a ruse. But let's say they're going after them, and they're coming in. And they've signed Delta, and they've signed Julia, and Stephanie Vaquer. A lot of international flavor here. Good thing to have as you move into new TV deals. And maybe there is something to pushing Damage Control in that way. Okay, let's talk Punk, Seth, Drew, and Bronson. I know he explained it. I didn't buy the explanation. Punk comes out after losing to someone he might have more heat with than anybody else in his entire WWE run. and he's singing his song, and he's laughing, and he's soaking in the crowd. And I said out loud, I go, did he lose on Saturday? Because he sure isn't selling it that way. And it does feel like, and I might be reading into this too much, he's doing a lot of pandering. I like CM Punk, who is the same no matter what. And one of those guys, you turn the dial one way or the other. There's a lot of shaking hands and high-fiving. Let me get at the end of the kickoff show and say something funny. And there's a lot of that going on with CM Punk. There's a lot of playing to the fans that he didn't typically do. It's noticeable. It almost feels like, and I thought this last night when he was talking, he's just happy to be there. And a few times, the crowd did not react to what he said. And I'm bringing that up because it happened with Damian Priest, and they did react in a positive way. He said, my summer of hate, was supposed to begin, and then it didn't. This packed house of beautiful people. Very pandering. And they didn't pop. It was just like, yeah. Priest talks about his family and all these people, and they go nuts. Punk says it, and they're like, it didn't seem genuine. It didn't seem like the CM Punk that didn't care about what people thought. If you're with me, great. If you're not, okay. He very much wants the people to be with him. He's almost begging for it at times. When they popped? When he said, people don't want to hear CM Punk talk. They want to see him fight. And then they popped. Wasn't his thing talking? It doesn't feel like that is the same anymore. He's almost trying to be too likable. And then Seth comes out. And Seth came out angrier than Punk because Punk talked about, I didn't think I was going to come back in time. And I think, the fact that I beat the comeback and I made it back in 5 months, that's great. Kind of shits on the finish, though. Kind of doesn't sell the fact that you lost to Drew McIntyre. Saturday was a win because you got back in time. What about all the hate that you had for Drew McIntyre? What made you see red? Weren't you mad about a bracelet the other day? And now you're happy? Now you put that behind you because you got back in time? I thought it took away from the heat between him and Drew. I thought it didn't sell the finish enough. To me, it was like Punk was like, it's okay. I made it back in time. That was awesome. At this point in my career, the fact that I did that, that came across as a guy who's broken down and is listening to the people who's telling him that he's broken down. And then it was like an upset for him to hang in there. He's talking about WrestleMania. What's he talking about WrestleMania for? He lost on Saturday. I thought that overlooked the loss to Drew too much. Even if he tried to explain it, I don't think it was a good explanation. And then Seth comes out, and he ate a GTS. He was angrier than Punk. He was more pissed off than Punk was. He had a reason to be pissed off. He was a little more subdued with the close, which I appreciated. Still a bit much, but still. And I liked what Seth said. It's taken, after 10 long years, it's finally time to put you in the dirt. And the crowd popped for it. Because people want to see that. People want to see that match happen. They know these two guys really deep down probably don't like each other. Even if they're doing business, it comes across well. And they were going to fight. And then Drew talks. And Punk is in character select mode. He's doing this. And I'm going, just go fight him. Who cares what Drew's saying? Just go fight the guy. Why are you both standing there looking at each other but not looking at Drew? So you'll look at each other and not fight, even though you were about to. Where Seth's like, you going to let me get in the ring or am I going to kick your ass out here? And they say that and I love it. Cool. They're all fired up. And Punk's he's in this mode and is fit, and they're just listening to Drew while they're looking at each other. Why were they waiting to fight? And then all of a sudden, Drew brings up the bracelet, and that sets Punk off, and then he goes out into the... Now I'm going to go chase this guy. You had the guy right in front of you that you wanted to fight, and he wanted to fight you. You literally had just said, people don't want to hear CM Punk talk, they want to hear me fight. And here comes a guy who wants to fight you, and you want to fight him, and you stop because somebody up in the stands is talking. Who gives a shit? I don't believe you then if you say you want to fight. It sounds like you're backing off. It sounds like you're just talking and not backing up your words. It sounds like you're full of shit. However, Bronson Reed, who had talked to Adam Pearce earlier, says, I am going to have to go do this on my own. Much like Braun Breaker was not happy he wasn't in King of the Ring, and look what he did, and look what he earned, and look that he's now Intercontinental Champion. And Bronson Reed goes, all right, fine, Pearce, you're going to ignore me. I won that match, and Sheamus got the match. What's the deal? And he goes out there, and he called the shot. And he has the biggest night of his career. 2 tsunamis. I actually thought that the third one, this is a very weird nitpick, I thought Cole called it like Wade does, almost too excited, almost too happy, not like tsunami. It was tsunami! Like, oh man, that's his big move. And then he adjusted. And then Cole, and a little bit of Pat, sold the hell out of it. What are they doing? Get paramedics out here. This guy, get a national. They're going, this guy, they sold Bronson Reed as unstoppable. And he comes back and hits more. I loved, that was a great example of taking your time. He could have hit 6 in a row, but he hit a couple. He came back and he hit more. Then he comes back up to the top rope, and then they get Seth out of the way. And all I said was, hey, why did it take 6 tsunamis to move Seth? Why did they move him before that? Whatever. Segment was great. Biggest night of Bronson Reed's career. And you can tell that Bronson is someone they like. Now, I'll tell you this story. TakeOver 30. I just looked it up. Bronson was supposed to win the North American Championship in a ladder match. They changed the finish, and Priest won instead. But Bronson Reed has been well-liked by Triple H for quite some time. They eventually put the North American title on him. You know, he didn't really go anywhere under Vince, and then, you know, then he came back, and then it was Big Bronson Reed and all that crap. Bronson can work. Bronson had some real good matches and has had good matches and has been able to throw his weight around, and I don't think he's the best promo in the world. He might be someone who would benefit a little bit more from having a manager who can talk him up. But he backs it up, and his stuff looks good. And everything he did last night made me believe, whether he had a blood capsule or not, that Seth was in a lot of pain. And I hope Seth sells that for multiple weeks. And maybe that's the plan of, hey, he's not totally back from the knee injury yet. We got to take him. Great segment. Really important to follow it up. Baltimore was with it. I also love this. When they went to interview Jackie with Pierce, I think that's what it was, there was the sign that they had for the arena that said Mondays hit harder as they're talking about the situation. Intentional or not, I really love that. New Day and Final Testament. All right, forget the match. I don't care. The Odyssey Jones run-in was awesome. The crowd wasn't sure. He got drafted forever ago. And then he got over with what he did in a hurry. He is a truck. I think he's gotten bigger. And it is not easy to put those two segments so close together with kind of the same idea of it's a one-man wrecking crew. Bronson's was to make a statement and take out a top baby face. Odyssey took out Final Testament, who nobody likes, and hitting that double sidewalk slam. My goodness. Team effort. Not to pull the curtain back too much. Team effort. Looked great. Looked great. He moved well, and I will always say this. A boss man slam by a big guy, when done correctly, always looks great, especially on somebody smaller. Not a lot of small people in the ring last night for that segment, but a boss man slam by a big dude to someone who can take it, and especially a smaller person can flip, that always looks good. He hit all his spots right. Now you could see Woods was a little, and then they did the backstage. And Kofi's like, oh yeah, we linked up at the PC when I was rehabbing, blah, 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 blah. What? And Woods is like, you didn't tell me. And before they can start, and all of a sudden Alpha Academy comes in. And that's it. Now, there's two things here. One, are we hinting at a heel turn? I always thought Woods had it in him. We'll see. Maybe he's got to win him over. Two, and I believe this can happen under the current regime, does Woods have trepidation because of Kevin Owens? And that is a callback to the Big O, when Kevin stepped in for E and was in the group. And I'm not saying Odyssey Jones should be part of New Day. No one should be part of New Day. He can be a friend of New Day. He can be an associate of New Day. He came out with the shirt on last night, but the New Day is the same three people. And maybe they didn't pitch it this way. Maybe Woods pitched it this way because he's smart. He should have trepidation because no one has ever been part of the group. And the one time they let their guard down and let KO in, it cost them. I will note that Big E did put over Odyssey on Twitter. Whether he was supposed to do that, whether that was him being Big E and a great dude, and you know what, maybe getting out ahead of any backlash of they're replacing E or whatever. Maybe it was both. Thought it helped. I do wonder if there is something to having E endorse him on the show. He's obviously on panels and ambassador for the company and all that stuff while he remains out of the ring. I don't know his medical status. I believe everything he's saying about where he's at and where he's not at and all that. I think that's all good. But all of a sudden, I care about New Day a lot more than I did about the Final Testament stuff. And I saw people, and I've had comments, they're a comedy act, blah, blah. Okay. All of a sudden, is Odyssey going to have to win Woods over? Is Woods going to be pissed about this? Does E have to get involved? All in the middle of super forever babyface Kofi Kingston putting over a new guy. And all of a sudden, New Day has new life injected into them. Well done. The Braun promo. Loved his line about his name being bolted to the title. Sure, obvious, it's on the title. But I love the way he said it, as if this is not coming off of here. He finished that promo very strong. I hated that Kathy had to add something on the end. That took away. I don't know if she was told that or she didn't. I know she had to get back to the ring because it was getting ready for a match. That line should have landed on its own. His last line should have been it. Just like when Sheamus said the banger line and they hit his music and Jackie stood there because there was no reason to add to that. You know you were going back to the ring. Braun's line, it's a nitpick. Braun's line should have stood on its own. Later, Sammy gets the pep talk, a serious one from Dragunov, and then Jey Uso comes in and says yeet a bunch of times in between, encouraging Sammy. And then Sammy's like, come on, you know I already talked to P.S. already. 2 out of 3 falls next week. That's what we know. Jay then brings up, we got to get more done against Judgment Day and get the tag titles. Sammy's like, okay. Guess what? These two are staying together. I said it weeks ago. This is a good act. They're friends. They're buddies. They have chemistry. Keep them together. And perhaps it's a sign of things to come when a certain original tribal chief may need a little help. Maybe. Who would he have to win over more than those two guys right there? Good stuff. By the way, 2 out of 3 falls next week. Braun should 100% win both of those falls. And then let Sammy move on. All right, let's talk about the Wyatt Sicks stuff. 11 years ago was the debut, not in ring, but the debut of the Wyatt family in Baltimore. I like that they brought that up. I question this in a good way. Was this intentional? Did they save this for Baltimore? Or did it just happen to be a beautiful coincidence that hey, we're going to be in Baltimore, and oh, look at that. That just happens to work. I like that they lean into it. If it was planned all along, even better. The music was very emotional. I got emotional for a second with the words of that music and showing Bray and intersplicing the new Wyatt family with that Wyatt family. That was good. One thing I didn't like, they do the Gacy thing. And Michael Cole goes, we continue with our profiles of the group. And all I could think of was like, didn't this start with them scaring the shit out of you and Pat with VHS they gave you that were the profiles of the group, and now you're saying we continue? Like, it's almost like the company was in on it all along, which obviously they are, but you don't. It made it seem like the company was like, yes, and here's our next profile of the Wyatt family. Like, I know that's what it is, but they did it in a way where there's the VHS tape and it was getting delivered to Cole, and he was scared, and it's like, let's get this to the truck and see what's on it. And this was, we continue with our profiles of the group. It was almost like he read the production notes of it, as opposed to, we've gotten this tape from the Wyatt family. I said it in my little teaser for the show. You see the creeds, and they had a good, I like the back and forth with Maxine, and I like the stuff with Ivy, and whether she's in the group or not, that was good. Let's show them on the show. Why? We show them walking in. We show them later because you're building to your main event. You should keep bringing that stuff up. It's a great thing to remind the audience on a 3-hour show. Hey, this is the main event. So you do it a couple times throughout the night. We know it was all about the Wyatts, but by having those things that they showed about the Wyatt family, the Gacy thing, showing Chad with the Creeds, with Ivy, it's all reminders of that's the main event tonight. That's how you promote without throwing it in people's face. Even though they have the little stuff in the corner, it was well done. Now, they have Chad cut that promo really strong to the camera. You knew they were losing. And he's like, blah, 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 we're American made. I just went, they're American made. I can't sing that song, but I just went to Hogan's music, and I was like, well, that's the opposite of what they want. It's an okay name. It's not great. It'll be fine. They'll make it work. They come out. They're all together. They don't have that as the Titantron. That was Gable's thing, and we get the big Wyatt entrance. By the way, watch them all. Watch their feet. That's not an easy entrance to do with 5 people remaining in a pack. Gacy's walking sideways, and Nikki's got to lead the way, and there's a lantern, and there's everybody's different heights, and there's smoke. And I just looked at it that way and went, man, that's not easy to do. That's a tough entrance. And they nailed it, and then they had him sit in the chair, and they do the match. And I will say the aura was not lost. It's a different presentation. They're telling you they're humans, which, by the way, is what the original Wyatt family was. They were scary as hell big dudes with a cult leader, but they were still humans. Fiend and all that stuff went supernatural. I liked it. It was weird to see, like, the babyface Wyatts need, one of their guys in peril, and he's got to make the hot tag. But they're humanizing them. They're not going to lose anytime soon, but they're humanizing them. And I like the tandem offense. I'd love to know how they worked all that stuff out and what that discussion was. By the way, what a night for Eric Rowan being the link. God, I that was a lot. That must have been that's an emotional time, and I'm sure it has been for him, but I'm sure last night was emotional and good for him, and I love to see him getting the pop, and never heard a bad word about that guy. But, man, that's to be the tie 11 years apart, which is also wild that the Wyatts debuted with that stuff on Kane 11 years ago. Holy shit. But they did well, and the pose was there, and it was all good. Good start. Great Raw. I mean, there's your angle, and they're all baby faces. This is not a heel group, and they've made that clear. So we'll see what's next. I would assume they're not done with Gable, and they're not done with the Creeds, and maybe there's a singles match, but a good start. And I'm happy for those people we all just saw right there. I'm happy for Eric Rowan. A lot of people seem to like the match. Nerdy dude, you are. These people have been through a lot, some worse than others, but man, they got something here. Productive Raw, strong Raw, One of the better ones of the year. Shout out to Baltimore. Listen, there's some stuff that gets presented that's really good, and the crowd's just, they're not with it. They got a hell of a show last night, and they were a big part of that show. I've heard it said a couple times. I'll say it as well. There was a Raw after WrestleMania feel to that show. Big angles, following up, debuts, new directions, a big debut in-ring to end the show. Maybe they want that to be a thing. It seems like that's kind of died down a little bit in recent years from what used to be the Raws after Mania. But the Raw after SummerSlam was one of the best shows of the year. I thought it was a better show than SummerSlam. And now we have Roman to look forward to. Now, one thing I want to hit before we go. Shawn Michaels just announced this. A couple people have sent it to me. Shawn Michaels has announced, and I did tell you I heard this, that the first 2 episodes of NXT on CW are on the road. Chicago in the Allstate Arena and St. Louis. Don't know what that venue is. I had heard they were going to take it on the road. I don't know if that's going to be a regular thing. I know it was discussed going back to last year. But they're taking those first 2 shows on the road. And I think they will sell a bunch of tickets. And you better believe they're going to load up that first episode on CW. And you will see main roster talent on the show. And I totally get that, and they should. You want to make a big impact. You want to do so one of the best in what I believe is the best wrestling arena in America. Now, I used to say the world, but I've seen enough. Is that true? Punk is confirmed for Chicago? Is that actually happening? NXT, CM Punk, Chicago. I just want to confirm. Not taking it away from anybody. Here we go. Yep. CM Punk at Chicago, Randy Orton, St. Louis. There you go. Announced by the company. It's the right move. Load them up. Make wrestling bigger. Who doesn't want to see those guys in their hometowns, regardless of the show? And yes, looks like that there's that weird AEW week where they're going head-to-head. So there you go. The next NXT AEW is going to be on October 8th. And I'll make, they're going to load it up. They should. It's a big deal. So, hey, that's fun. Good for the NXT people. Go on the road. Make wrestling bigger. That's what's happening everywhere. Try to make it as big as possible. Try to make everything matter. Give the fans a lot. And I think they got that from Raw last night. You're going to get that from CW. We'll see what they do tonight on the night 2 of Great American Bash. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. Any other news that's going on, we will cover it. So, fun show today. Thank you guys for joining us. Always fun to talk about a good show. That helps in a big way, and I had more than enough to talk about. Make sure, once again, Dom, throw the memberships up if you could. If you're not a member, you can sign up at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. You can join below. This is what we have here for you. The 3 tiers. If you're in the mid-card or main event tier, you can watch Raw live with us next week. So, coming off of this week, I'm excited to do that with you guys. Make sure you hit it up on the show live in the comments section. If you didn't get your question in, do it tomorrow. Get a super chat in. Promise it'll get answered that way. Get your comments in, but I think that's about it. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk more NXT. Any other news that breaks. And as always, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you're a member. I don't want to be president, Vincent. Thank you very much. As Tom Green said, that's the Waltz brother, which is a great reference if you know old bad WCW. No interest in being president. I just like being on the show with all you guys. And I'll be back to talk about wrestling even more tomorrow. And I'll say the line better tomorrow too. But I'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Wrestling Mat.